Session has been a harsh wake-up call for all of us, but for baby boomers, it's been a game changer. Our first guest today is the CEO of Norwalk-based advertising and market research firm Brandloff. Roger Chiocchi has taken his market research skills. He's used them to learn more about boomers and how they're handling this current economic crisis. He documents his findings in Baby Boomer Bust, how the generation of promise became the generation of panic. Roger, good having you in the program.
Thank you, Becky. Pleasure to be here.
I should have read it differently. It's Baby Boomer Bust? A question mark. Has this economic crisis been a real bust for boomers?
I think it's a punctuation mark. I think boomers' expectations about retirement, even before the meltdown, were unrealistic. I think when the meltdown happened, it brought into high relief the fact that retirement isn't going to be what they thought it might have been 10 years ago.
Let's talk a little bit about the survey that you conducted. That's one component of this book, an online survey of 150 individuals, baby boomers. What did you find out? What were some of the issues that were forefront in their minds?
How am I going to pay for retirement? Will I ever be able to retire? You know, the value of their houses were down 30%. The value of the 401ks, we took the survey last summer, were down almost 40%. A lot of them really were panicking, but they really didn't know what to do. They were sort of paralyzed. And there was a lot of anger at a lot of different institutions. I mean, a trust in traditional institutions, both government and business, has gone down a lot among our generation.
It's interesting, your point about not knowing what to do or how to fix it. This has been this generation. I'm in this generation, so but we've been very good at learning how to create something new if we're not satisfied with the status quo. You know, we don't like our phone that's tied to the wall. Well, let's invent a phone that we can walk around a room with. I mean, we've done that over and over and over again. But this problem seems to be so mammoth, and our timeline seems to be so much shorter. Has that left boomers really frustrated?
Well, I think that's the salvation of the boomers, their resiliency and their creativity. But they're going to have to think of life and retirement differently. It's not like you're going to work till you're 62 and then retire to Florida. It's you're going to have to prepare for your gap years, which most people, most sociologists say are 65 to 85, 87, between when you leave your formal job and need to live in assisted living or something like that. So it's critical that baby boomers reinvent themselves for their gap years and think about alternative living situations.
Are they thinking about scaling back, though? Because you talk about this in the book, and you see it around here, people that have fallen on hard times financially, but continue to live the lifestyle that they led prior to seeing the resources they had slashed so significantly.
It's interesting because I spoke to a Westport psychotherapist named Michael Formica. He told me at the high end, it's very, very difficult for people who've lost maybe a $10 million fortune to adjust. They keep on doing the same things just out of rote. Whereas at the middle and the low end, since they've been used to, you know, living hand to mouth for many years, they're much more resilient and able to adapt.
All right. Eventually, those at the high end, though, probably are going to be forced to make those changes as well. Let's talk about, there are 8 individuals, kind of case studies or profiles that you write about in the book, kind of all representing different aspects of this. Tell me about a few of these individuals and what was going on, what happened in their lives to change them so.
Well, there was a fella who worked for Citigroup, and he was a mid-level IT exec named Dick Shaughnessy, and he had the name of the chapter actually is Empty Bucket, because he had his bucket list. He was 2 years from retirement. He had done the math. Then all of a sudden, Citigroup stock plummets from $50 a share to $2 a share. Half of his 401k was in Citigroup stock, and then to add insult to injury, he was let go. So he's going to, you know, his bucket's going to be an empty bucket for a while. He's going to have to reinvent himself and find, you know, and work for much longer time than he anticipated only 2 years ago. Another fella named John Parati, actually, he was earned high 6 figures on Wall Street as a trader, and today he's a bartender in one of the bistros in Fairfield County.
But what I liked about him was the fact that he did that. There are many people who will say, oh, I can't work that job. I was a high-end trader on Wall Street. There is no way you're going to see me behind a bar. But he had the ability, the humility to go ahead and do that.
Well, he's a very resilient person, and I think that he is very practical in terms of the approach he took to his situation. A lot of people haven't been able to do that.
Yeah. You talk about divorce in the book, and that really has been a blow, because this is kind of, some couples have have stayed together probably shouldn't because of financial reasons, but others, this has kind of driven a wedge between them, and they have gotten separated and eventually divorced. And that's been another financial blow, hasn't it?
Well, yeah. What happens with a divorce is usually you take one economically viable household, and after the divorce, there's at least one uneconomically viable household, sometimes two. Usually the uneconomically viable household is the women's, according to research. But it does have a macro effects on our society because we're creating households that aren't as viable as the ones that they're replacing.
Did the boomers have any thoughts about the future and how we're going to be leaving the next generation? I think our parents, the reason why we've done so well is they instilled this drive for constant improvement and making things better in us. Our parents always said, we want your lives to be better than ours. We're not necessarily going to leave our children with that kind of a world, are we?
Not necessarily. There's a lot. I'm not an economist, but there's lots of implications. If we work longer, what does that do to the entry level? And without the entry level people at the entry level jobs, who's going to fund our Social Security? So there's a whole ripple effect, and it's going to be quite a challenging economy going forward, I think, for the next generations.
All right. Well, it's all in baby boomer bust. It's how the generation of promise became the generation of panic. Roger, good having you on the program.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. We'll be back with more 12 on the Money after the break.
When he took on Joe Lieberman and George Bush
He's fearless
and stood up against the war in Iraq,
courageous,
we took notice.
very gutsy.
Ned Lamont.
Ned had the courage to stand up and distinguish himself from the crowd.
Fiercely independent, Ned Lamont will work to put Connecticut back on track. An economic SWAT team to help existing businesses grow. The best plan to spur innovation and create jobs.
Well, I'm a business guy. I know that it's business people that create jobs.
He built a national high-tech company from the ground up.
Government can help create some of the conditions that make it a lot easier for small business to grow and prosper. I'm going to make sure those small, mid-sized businesses start growing and hiring again.
And while at Central Connecticut, Ned Lamont brought business and labor together. The focus, creating jobs.
I'm going to make darn sure that we get this state growing again.
Swipe me 5, let me know you're live. Thanks, my friend.
The can-do spirit Connecticut needs.
We can compete with anybody.
Ned Lamont, Governor, making Connecticut win again.
I'm Ned Lamont, and I approve this message.
I'm a homeowner, and I know after working all week and many, many hours, I don't want to go home and maintain what I've done around my home. Cambridge paving stones are made with Armortech. As the manufacturer, I can assure you that with Armortech, they will not look worn, nor will the color ever fade. With Armortech, the same color that you chose when you first had it installed will look the same for years to come.
Cambridge paving stones with Armortech will always look like new.
Welcome back to 12 on the Money. I'm Rebecca Surran. The state is calling for an investigation into the Bernie Madoff Ponzi scheme and its possible connection to a local bank. Governor Rao has directed the Department of Banking to work with Attorney General Richard Blumenthal in an investigation into claims that Westport National Bank aided and abetted Madoff's scam. As we've reported, officials at Connecticut Community Bank, that's the parent company of Westport National, say it lost more than 200 separate retirement funds worth more than $60 million in the scandal. Now, the investigation will also be looking into the potential connection between PSCC Services. That's a Westport-based pension consulting firm and its founder, Robert Silverman. The allegations suggest Silverman knowingly steered money to Madoff's company through Westport National Bank. Madoff pleaded guilty last year